All right, welcome back to another episode of the Playoffs of Life podcast with your host, Adrian Hatcher. If you're tuning in, we appreciate you. Please leave a like and subscribe on the channel, as well as on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a review. In today's show, we're going to get into the Warriors. Basically, we're going to bring up the same conversation everybody else has been having. Can the Warriors actually stay in the play-in? It used to be, can they make the playoffs? But now it's, can they stay in the play-in? We're going to get into that. Also, let's get into how the Rockets are resurging and actually threatening the Warriors' place in the standings, literally a game back from the Warriors. We're going to get into that. Also, we have the Clippers. We already know what this team is. We're going to dive deeper into what is really going to stop them from making a playoff and championship run. And then last but not least, we'll get into the young stars that are going to be emerging in this league and how they've been developing throughout the year. All that and more on this episode of the Playoffs of Life. So let's get into the weekly grind. All right, so we have the Warriors who have struggled throughout the entire year. And I know Warriors fans love their Warriors. They believe that as long as you have a Steph Curry, a Klay Thompson, and a Draymond Green, you can win any game. But I think if we're being honest this year, the point has been proven that this team lacks the structure that they had when they necessarily made all those playoff pushes. The Warriors are literally in the ninth spot, and the Rockets are in the 10th spot. They are only a game behind the Warriors, which means the Warriors necessarily, if they cannot keep winning games at the same pace the Rockets are, they can get kicked out of the playoffs, which is very, very weird, very, very different from how the past few years have been going for the Warriors. Steph Curry has not been playing at the same level that he has been playing throughout the year. But if we can be, realistic, the Warriors haven't been playing the way that they have been playing throughout the last few years. Steph has been carrying a lot of the load, a lot of the burden. They've also had a lot of other injuries. I think Steph went through a period of injuries. Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and even their core pieces. Andrew Wiggins was out for some time. Their bench pieces, that their young guys have been out for a little bit. All this has like coalesced into what we see now, which is a play-in team. Let's just come out and say it. The Warriors are still good. As long as you have a Steph Curry, you have a shot. But it's no longer having a Steph Curry means you're a championship contender. I think we all see that. Now, Klay Thompson has been experimented in terms of where he's placed. He's been on the bench. He's been in the starting lineup. He's played fewer minutes one night, and some nights he's played more minutes than anybody else. Sometimes he closes, and sometimes he is sitting on the bench during those clutch minutes. But regardless of all that I'm saying, I think the biggest thing that has held the Warriors back is the Draymond Green dilemma in terms of Draymond Green has been more of a distraction than an actual like player on the court. And I mean, I can't knock the Warriors. Like, they are champions of champions. They've had a great run. I don't know if everything can be contributed to Draymond Green. I just think he's been a big component of it. He recently like had a game where he just got kicked out. Like, I think it was like 3 minutes into the game because he just was talking, and I think that's hilarious. Um, but from a team aspect, you literally lose your starting power forward 3 minutes into the game, and this player is important for the structure of your team. He holds down the defense. He makes plays for Steph, Clay, and everybody else. He is pretty much captain, oh captain, So it's been situations like those that have caused Draymond Green to be shedded more light and more awareness on, man, when he is not performing at the level we think he's supposed to, this Warriors team does not look like they have the same punch, especially if Steph Curry isn't on top of his game, scoring 25 to 30 points a game, which he shouldn't necessarily have to at this point in his career. But let's also point out that Steve Kerr has made a decision to sit Steph for longer periods of time. His minutes are basically being capped around that 30-minute mark of a 48-minute game. So those reasons, of course, is because Steph is older. He's more injury prone. Also, you want to keep your stars healthier going later into the season. So it just makes sense to sit your star players longer. But you're honestly not in the best position to sit your star players because you're still fighting and scraping to make sure you get further into the postseason. So it's really tough for the Warriors right now. I think so many things have happened to cause them to be a play-in team this year. They have not looked like a playoff team. They do not look like they can make it past a second round. I'm not 100% sure if they could make it past the first round. As talented as they are, they still have a lot to figure out, and you just can't have that many distractions going into the postseason. The postseason is supposed to be where you are locked in, you are ready to go. And I don't think the Warriors are ready to go at this point in the season. So hopefully we will see some improvement in these last few games. I think it's only like 12, maybe 10 games left in the season. I'm not sure about the Warriors schedule, but I do think that they're at a point in the season where every game matters. So, Warriors fans, what do you think about this dilemma? Do you feel like the Warriors will make the play in, will get into the playoffs, and how far do you think they will make it? And do you believe that they're still a championship team? I want to hear you guys in the comments. I think it's only fair to speak about the Rockets, seeing as they are the biggest competitor against the Warriors at this current point. They are in the 10th spot, the final play in spot for the playoffs. So, what the Rockets have been going through is a little bit different. They necessarily have played the best basketball that they've had in a long period of time. And throughout that run, their star player, April Sengun, was balling. I mean, they've realized that he is the hub and the offense and defense needs to go through. But unfortunately, April Sengun got hurt about a month ago, which led to a lot of people believing now the Rockets have a reason to not perform as well as they should be performing this year, as we should be seeing them in the playoffs. But something happened, something that a lot of people either Rockets fans or maybe the casual fans did not see coming. Jalen Green took the opportunity presented to him and decided to encapsulate what April Sengun has been doing. He is taking that role as the offensive hub. He's played better defense. He's been the team leader that a lot of people foresaw for him when he was drafted at such a high pick. Jalen Green for the past few years, in many people's eyes, he's underperformed. He hasn't been a go-to co-star. Say, he's had those games where, yeah, he's scored a lot of points. He's shown the athleticism. He's shown the tenacity. He's shown the potential to be a all-star level guard or a potential playoff berth type of player. But this season is where he's truly proved it. Since April Sengun went down, Jalen Green has basically become the go-to scorer, and we love it. I love to see what I love to see what Jalen Green has been doing since he's been put into that role. Now the question is, can they get a better footing in the playing spot? Can they get past the Warriors and actually solidify a more foundational spot for them in the playoffs? Because we understand that, yes, the play-in tournament is a really cool addition, but the teams that get out the play-in tournament don't necessarily have a easier road through the playoffs. They necessarily are fighting for the last possible seed. And when they obtain that seed, now you have to face the best teams in your conference, which is insane, but that's just the game. You basically ended up in the eighth seed now. And you would think, oh, I'm so happy they got into the playoffs. And yes, as a Rockets organization, you should be proud of your players and you should be proud that your organization has built themselves back to relevancy. But now you have to fight most likely the OKC Thunder or the Denver Nuggets. Now, when you say it like that, I think a lot of people don't assume you're going to make it any further than the first round. But it's not really about that for the Rockets. They've shown development. They have a coach that's bringing the best out of all their players. and they're making a playoff push. I think those are the goals that were realistic. Anything more than that is just cream on top of the cake. So I think that whether or not they get bounced out in the first round, whether or not they win a couple games, they've set their goals, they've made their intentions known, and we should be excited to see what they can do if they can make it into a spot in the playoffs. Now, for the Warriors' sake, if you're a Warriors fan, you don't want to hear that because necessarily if the Rockets make it past you, that dwindles your chances of trying to get into the playoffs and pushing for a championship. But for Rockets fans, I can understand why you are excited. This is a great time to be a Rockets fan. And knowing that April Sengun can come back, whether he comes back this year or he comes back in the following year, and you have a developing Jalen Green who's shown that they can be a dynamic duo, that's more exciting for your franchise. That makes you happier because you can think, oh, next season, man, if we could do this, what can we possibly do next? Plus, you still got a lot of developing young pieces on that bench. You got a Cam Whitmore. You still have Tari Eason, he's a defensive specialist, but he has shown so much potential. And then you still have the core pieces that you went and got in free agency, such as a Fred Van Fleet, a Dylan Brooks, and you know what? You made a trade. I don't know if a lot of people talked about this at the time, but the Rockets made a trade for Steven Adams. So if Steven Adams can come back and be the type of player that we've seen him be, that defensive anchor, that strong physical presence in the paint, man, you have such a great team coming into next year. So your hopes probably should be for next year for that real playoff push. But let me know what you think, Rockets fans. Tell me if you are excited about the season and if you think you can get further into the play-in push past the Warriors. So I think this season realization is hitting a lot of Clippers fans in terms of what we expect from this team. Going into the season, I don't think anybody really thought that James Harden was going to be as transformative as he's been for that franchise. The way everything went down in the media and the trade itself, you probably thought James Harden would be a toxin. He wouldn't really bring out anything from this team, and he was likely going to be asking for more money next year for a basic mid-level performance, or he was going to ask for another trade once again. But James Harden has come in. He's gelled with the team. He's given enough time to gel with the team. And Kawhi Leonard and Paul George have loved the acquisition. They went on a run during December. I believe it was like December and January, where they just looked unstoppable. They looked like a championship caliber team. They looked like they were up there with the Denvers, the OKCs, the Boston Celtics. They were that level of team. And since that run going into February and March, they've kind of been middle of the road. I believe they've like gone through a 8-10 stretch in the last few weeks, which have led to a lot of people speculating the Rockets aren't going to, I mean, not the Rockets, but the Clippers aren't really going to be in the championship hunt anymore. They may get pretty deep in the playoffs, but we don't know for sure anymore because how late it is in the season if what we saw during that really good stretch in December and January is what we're going to see in the postseason. Now, let's take a step back. I also don't know if we're going to see that stretch again, but the playoffs are a whole different beast. And maybe this is just my opinion, but I think every team has to go through a kind of mid period during their season, no matter how good they are. For example, the Celtics look absolutely amazing. And we're not doubting whether or not they're a championship team. We've had speculation that, okay, if they're not hitting their shots, this is going to be very difficult. But in a 7-game series, you don't think Boston is going to be missing that many shots. And as the team they are, you assume, okay, the Boston Celtics, even if they have off games or off or like 2 or 3 bad games, they're still in that championship, contention. Recently, they lost to the Atlanta Hawks by like 30 points, but literally like a week later, no one's going to talk about that at all. Why? Because we know what the team is. I want to put that type of sentiment for the Clippers. I think we know what this team is. I think we've known for a long time. I think the James Harden acquisition definitely changed a lot of opinions because of how well it's worked. And I honestly, in my opinion, I think it's made that team a lot better than what they were last season. So for the Clippers, are they going to be in flux this season? Yes. But are they still a championship contender? Yes. As long as they're healthy. That is the key term here, health. Health is wealth. And without health, the Clippers are never going to make it that far. No team can make it that far in the playoffs if they can't stay healthy. And for the most part, this team has stayed healthy, but they have to go through a part of the season where they have to rebuild that identity. They have to gel once again, and they just have to get into a nice rhythm. So I am very confident that the Clippers are going to figure it out. And not only are they going to figure it out, but that they are truly going to compete in those second rounds and those finals type of games. I feel like they'll make it to a Western Conference Finals against anybody other than Denver. Anybody but Denver. I think they have a good shot against. So, what do you think, Clippers fans? Let me know in the comments. Are the Clippers still a championship contender, even though they've struggled a little bit at this later half of the season? Let me know in the comments. So for the NBA season, a lot of people believe the most exciting time is during the off season and during the trade deadline. Why? Because we want to see the best players go to different spots. It's so exhilarating to know, oh man, what can this team do this year? What can this team do next year based off the trades that they make? And you just want to see the NBA get better and better and more diverse as the years go on. So this offseason has been very challenging. The media has been talking a lot about how the NBA is not going to have a lot of big stars on the market. PG-13 looks like he's going back to the Clippers. Donovan Mitchell looks like he's going to make an extension with the Cavaliers. But lately, talks have been happening leading up to the postseason that make you think about this. PG apparently is far apart from what they said in talks with the Clippers organization right now. So what does that mean for his future? Well, if they can't come to a deal, they necessarily have already locked up Kawhi Leonard. And James Harden also is going to be looking for a deal as well, seeing as he just got traded to that team. His contract is going to be coming up, and we expect him to still get a hefty amount of money based off the production he's given throughout the year. So when it comes to PG-13 and the type of deal he's looking at, he's in a really interesting situation. Does he stay with the Clippers, who more than likely are going to want to run this back if he necessarily signs up with them? They may make a couple of changes here and there to improve their odds, but PG's best opportunity, at least to win a championship, looks like it's going to be with the Clippers. Now, what teams could compete with that? Well, there's talks that the Philadelphia 76ers would be competing to acquire PG this year. Now, necessarily, I don't know if that improves his chances at a championship. It definitely would mean he is more of the go-to player on that team, seeing as injuries so big like Joel Embiid has happened. Paul George necessarily would step in as the go-to scorer in those periods. Because if we're being honest, Embiid hasn't played a fully healthy season ever in his career, and I don't foresee that happening in the near future. So if it's between those two teams, I think PG's a smart man. I think he sees the Clippers as not only a organization where he has the best chance to win a championship, but the best spot for him in his personal life and whatever dealings and whatever negotiations he goes through with the Clippers will be resolved by the offseason or coming into the next regular season. Now, in Donovan Mitchell's case, that's a little bit iffy because in his scenario, he necessarily doesn't have the best chance with Cleveland. Cleveland has been very difficult to pinpoint on whether or not they are a legit championship type of team when he plays with them. When they have Donovan Mitchell in the lineup and they have a fully healthy team, they struggle to understand whose role is whose, how to best win. It just seems like they are a little bit more dysfunctional when they have everybody healthy. It was only when they were missing their starting point guard and their starting power forward, that they went on the biggest run they had all season, where they were just winning games left and right. Now, necessarily, you could look at that schedule and you could probably say, oh, well, the schedule was so much easier than a lot of teams go through. But come on now, it is the NBA. They went on a pretty long win streak for a good minute, and they were beating high level teams. Now that they have all their pieces necessarily back, they are not playing at that same level. They've lost some very questionable games. They've not looked like a championship level team. We can't say that the injuries are what's going to hold them back, because if we're being honest, once they got everybody back, they have struggled more, and they continue to struggle. It's to a point where the Cavs media is talking about, well, dang, if they have everybody back, they should be better, but the numbers don't add up to that. It seems like a change has to be made. And seeing as Donovan Mitchell is the top star, the head honcho on that team, you would probably look to move Darius Garland or Evan Mobley or maybe Jared Allen. You would look to move other pieces and allow Donovan to be built more around him. But that necessarily could happen if he extends, or that necessarily couldn't. I'm not sure who has the best chances to obtain a Donovan Mitchell. Maybe the Knicks, but I don't think that's a good fit anymore. I really don't think so. But yeah, it's up to debate. I do feel like in Donovan Mitchell's case, it is going to be more interesting to see how this offseason plays out, because I don't necessarily think that the Cavs are his best chance for a championship. But I also don't think that the other teams out there can incorporate Donovan Mitchell without giving up a lot. So we will see. Please leave your comments about what you think about how this offseason is going to turn out. Do you think that PG and do you think that Donovan Mitchell have a great chance of moving on to a different team or staying with their regular teams? Let me know in the comments. All right, let's look at the under the radar players of the week. And first, we have Delano Banton, a player that was picked up on some waivers by the Portland Trailblazers from earlier this season. He's kind of bounced around the league a little bit, but given the opportunity with the Blazers, he's been able to come off the bench and really give them a really good scoring punch. His best game up to this point, he had a 28 point, 11 rebound, 5 assists, one steal, and two block game in a loss to the Houston Rockets. Now, I understand that it was a loss, but at the same time, regardless of what team you're playing on, as an NBA player, you want to highlight your skills above all else. And Delano has taken the opportunity that's been given to him. And in the past week or so, he has really stepped his game up to a point where he can be a regular rotation player on that developing team. Now, we understand that there are other players that need to develop, players such as Shaden Sharp, Scoot Henderson, Anthony Simons. But in case of Delano, I see him as a really good scoring punch, potentially could be a six-man type of player for a team looking for as much talent and as much development as possible. Next, let's get into Miles McBride. So Miles is a different case. For the Knicks, they've had a lot of injuries. They dealt with a lot of turnover. But throughout the season, they've still been able to consistently build up wins. In no way is Jalen Brunson not contributing to what they've been doing, but they had to find other ways to really highlight their players and to keep consistent wins coming. And a player that has really shown up for them in the past few weeks has been Miles McBride for the Knicks. Man, up for a player that wasn't getting any time from Tom Thibodeau. The minute he has stepped on the floor, he has been on fire. So the game that we're going to be talking about is a 29.3 rebound, 7 assists, and 1 steal game against the Raptors in a win, mind you. But it's just highlighting how much he's developed his game, and the opportunity when it's given to him, he has taken it. He was splashing threes like God knows what. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. But Miles McBride has really shown up for this Knicks roster that has been depleted with injuries, and it's good to see him showing up for that team leading into the playoffs. Now, hopefully, they get their injured players back, but shout out to Miles McBride. Next, we're going to go into Rui Hachimura, who recently, of yesterday, scored a 32-point, 10 rebound, 1 assist, and 2 block game in a win over the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, this is truly an underrated game because every now and then Rui can have a big game, 20 points here, a couple rebounds here. It just depends on what night and how the coach is feeling about playing his players. Their rotation and their roster has pretty much been different for a long period of time, and they've really started to build a lot of consistency as the Lakers are trying to push deeper into the Western Conference since they are only like I think a few games up from the Warriors at this point. But Rui stepped up. He was also splashing in some threes, which going crazy with. He had 7 of 8 3-pointers. My God, Rui, shoot that ball. And if you could develop some type of consistency with this shot and the minutes that you are getting, I would love to see more of this performance from Rui Hachimura. Shout out to him being one of the under the radar players of the week. And then last but not least, we have Josh Giddey. He's been on this list before in previous episodes, and I want to highlight him again because this was a really good, solid game from him. Josh Giddey had 25 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists. He was also 5 of 8 from the 3-point line in a win over the Pelicans. And with Josh Giddey, we've said it before, he is a player that you know he's talented and he needs a consistent jump shot to really bring out the rest of his game. He constantly shows that he can be a playmaker, a scorer, a facilitator. He can do everything that you need him to do. And lately, with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander struggling a little bit and with players leaving the rotation here and there, he's given the opportunity and the closing minutes, mind you. He's been playing closing minutes for this team. He's been given the opportunity to step up. He's been given the opportunity to help them win games, and he's been the lead scorer throughout the week for the OKC Thunder. So shout out to all the under the radar players for the week. Guys, leave in the comments if you want to see any other under the radar players or any players that I miss. Let me know and we can talk about it. That will conclude our show for the week. I appreciate anybody that has come to like, subscribe, or to just leave a comment. Also, if on Spotify or Apple Podcasts you want to leave a review, please leave a review as we continue to go on with the Players of Life show. And we look forward to next week where we will get more into the playoff hunt with a few different teams, and we'll see what we're going to be able to dive deeper into later in the week. Y'all enjoy your day, and we will see you guys later. Peace.